Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. And after hearing that very insightful panel discussion, let me again welcome you to the FinCom 2022 Summit by CXO Global Forum. Let me remind you all that CXO Global Forum is a knowledge sharing platform for all C-levels across the globe. My name is Anza Saqib, and I'm going to be leading and moderating the next panel discussion. And this is a very interesting topic. Industry innovation, analyzing the customer experience sustainability and retention. And joining us today are two very esteemed panelists. Number one, Mr. Abrar who's the co-founder at Tazah, and Mr. Hamid, the software pro. Welcome to the show, gentlemen. I'm going to start by asking Mr. Abrar about the first question. But we're going to do a quick round of intros before. So, Mr. Abrar, can you please let the audience know what exactly does Tazah do, just as a reminder?
Sure. So, my name is Abrar. I'm the co-founder of Tazah Technologies. Tazah is a B2B agri marketplace that empowers millions of farmers and businesses by providing them access to capital and access to markets. We started out in August 2021, and so far have scaled our business to quite a significant level. We are currently, working with thousands of customers on a daily basis. We work with hundreds of farmers on a daily basis, and the idea is to build this into a global powerhouse of food trade and food supply chains.
Right. Thank you. And Mr. Hamid Mahmood, your introduction, please, with Software Pro.
Of course. So just wanted to correct this term as well. So I run about 3 agencies. One is Yes Software Pro. The second one is HTML Pro, and my favorite is Shopify Pro. And we're actually based in United States and several offices within the Middle East and also in Pakistan as well. My background and focus has been towards working with a lot of e-commerce agency owners. And I'm writing one of my book as well, which is called 365 Days 7-Figure Agency. So I work with a lot of agency owners to mentor them in ensuring that they're providing ultimate success to the e-commerce stores that we're working. As Shopify Pro right now is working with quite a few hundred of e-commerce stores for their development and marketing and growth strategies that we'll discuss today.
Right. Amazing. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us. I'm going to start with my questions. Mr. Abrar. So we talk about the term, industry innovation, right? And innovation in general with regards to e-commerce. Now, a big chunk of that has to do with analyzing the customer's expectations, their experience, and the overall, interface that the e-commerce platform has. What do you think we're doing right in Pakistan at this point in time in terms of industry innovation?
I think there are a lot of things that we're doing right, but given Pakistan is in a nascent stage of e-commerce development, I think there's also a lot of things that need to be done right. There are certain startups, there's certain, there's companies in Pakistan who have been, who are setting the benchmarks for, customer experience. How do we measure it? How do you analyze customer data? How do you sort of, conceptualize customer data? And that is also setting the benchmark for some of these other startups and the up and coming startups to fix that. I think that even that said, innovation is at a very early stage in Pakistan, and it's important that we learn from some of these late stage startups in Pakistan to ensure that the innovation that we really want on the customer experience and customer retention part is replicated. I was at Kareem before this, and there was a holistic way to measure customer experience that eventually led to customer retention. A lot of data analysis was required to measure customer experience. So I'll give you an example. We used to measure customer experience at tens of points. How much time did the customer require to book the car? how much time, what kind of ETA that customer got, whether that ETA was adhered to or not, what happened between those conversations, what was the quality of the car, how much time it took the customer to get to that situation, like get to their destination, whether the fare was adhered or not. So there were like a lot of things that we used to sort of measure customer data. And same we do it in Tazah, right? So I think there is a lot of room for companies to learn from, what late stage startups have already learned globally and in Pakistan, and apply that. But I think customer experience and retention is early phases in Pakistan, in my opinion.
Right. Thank you very much. Moving on, Mr. Hamid. Now, when we talk about the customer experience and retention, a large number of the customers that we have spoken to earlier have always had this complaint that, yes, Pakistan is growing when it comes to the e-commerce industry, but there's still a lot of customer protection, consumer protection laws that need regulation. For example, after-sales services needs to be improved. Delivery mechanisms need to be improved. Where do you see the room for improvement?
Yes, I would love to share that. So since I work directly with a lot of e-commerce brand and agencies within United States and Middle East, so if you just benchmark that, so that market is actually going in billions of dollars in terms of e-commerce, and we're still at the early stages. And especially there are two components in the e-commerce. Number one is the domestic e-commerce. The number two is e-commerce export, right? So domestic e-commerce somehow is working. We have bigger brands, the Tazah and other companies and marketplaces that we have. People are doing a lot of shopping out there, and then some smaller stores. But we are still very, very behind in terms of e-commerce export, right? And when it comes to e-commerce export, so that means you're actually selling your physical product to someone sitting in New York, to someone sitting in Dubai, to someone sitting in Singapore, right? And in order to do that, you have to have your brand name as a really good one, right? So in the book which I'm writing right now, it's actually the pillars of the organization. And we have to think that as a brand. When we think that as just a quick e-commerce store, run the campaign and trying to get the sales, no, it's not going to work. If you really want to sell outside Pakistan, especially, then you have to make it a brand. Number one, yes, create some blueprints in-house. So this is the missing element that we have, where the customer journey is starting, what are the customer touch points, what the customers are going to do, and what happens once they submit purchase, and what are the elements to bring them back to the e-commerce stores again. Now, there is another discussion which is going on, and that is with the increasing ad costs. So for example, the cost per acquisition has gone tremendously up because of the iOS policies. And that said, in Pakistan, it's still not a big problem because a lot of people are like Android users, but in the United States, it's a big problem, right? So if you have to sell over there, then you have to focus more on retention than acquisition, right? As soon as you have the acquisition, start working on retention, start working on the brand loyalty, start working on brand advocacy factors, right? And how you can do that when you have, number one, a good brand story. Number one, simple. Just imagine yourself that whoever is going to Google your brand, what he will be reading about your brand, because that's what you're going to do as well. When you're going to make a purchase of an e-commerce store, maybe buying a cloth or buying jewelry for yourself, you're going to check the reviews first, right? So in order to have the reviews first or good reviews, you have to have good customer support and service, right? So that essentially means that it's not just a quick e-commerce store, building up a Shopify site, sending the traffic and making a sale, but building up a brand with support, like customer service, like Mr. Abrar said, that understanding the consumer behavior. There are some multiple applications available. One of them is Lucky Orange, which can be used in the Shopify stores, right? And once you have a purchase, then run certain campaigns and techniques. For example, the brand for the brand loyalty, and also there are affiliate programs. There are loyalty programs. give them, the bonuses for getting them back again. So multiple practices can be done, but we have to have the mindset that we are selling to abroad, let's say, or in Pakistan, then our brand should be the best in the niche.
Right. Some very valid points made indeed. Now, Mr. Abrar, one of the other problems with customer retention is obviously, like Mr. Hamid also pointed out, the cost per acquisition are going higher when you talk about the e-commerce industry. And there's a lot of competition in the market now, especially with the Amazon and the Daraz and everyone entering the market. There is a lot of price, parity, if I may say. There's one online store that is selling goods for about 100 rupees, and then the other one for 2,000. And obviously, the consumers post-pandemic are tilted more towards the 100 rupee shop. And it's only later on that they realize that they're not getting value for their money. What do you think needs to be done, under such circumstances where, retaining the customer is becoming increasingly difficult?
So yeah, great question. I think it has to do with one, of course, like Hamid said, it's about building your brand story so that, even if you come across as slightly more expensive, the customer understands that, there is value there. Two is, of course, a lot to do with your operations and, how you are able to, do like a 360-degree better operations than anybody else, which eventually becomes your competitive advantage or your moat, which is, for example, when you look at e-commerce space in Pakistan, there is so much space to improve in so many areas. For example, how much time do you deliver your product in? So that's one, right? Whether you deliver what you said you're going to deliver, that's two. How is your last mile, rider experience? How does the rider interact with the customer? That's three. How is your return policy, right? So that's four. Then there's, how is your customer service, like Hamid clearly pointed out? How's your customer service? If things go wrong, what happens, right? And if you're able to do that sustainably, where most of the people in the market are not able to do it today, I think there is a clear moat that you build around your business, or there's a clear competitive advantage or a clear brand story that you build around your business that, that allows you to charge a higher price for the same product even, while at the same time not taking anything away from finding ways to source lower cost products. But I think there are multiple ways in a market like Pakistan, which is extremely inefficient from a e-commerce operation standpoint. There's multiple advantages that you can build, which which become sort of like your long-term competitive advantage. So I feel that there is a lot of space for brands to do that, and that is mainly built around building great operations right from the point where the customer opens your website. There's so many things that you can do there, from the first interaction to the last interaction that the customer has. I think there is so much space to improve for brands in Pakistan, and once they're able to do that, I feel that there's no stopping.
Right, absolutely, and I couldn't agree more. Now, moving on, Mr. Hamid Mahmood. So one of the other concerns with employee retention is the availability of choice. Now, because there's so much choice.
I'm sorry, you mentioned employee retention or customer retention?
Sorry, customer retention is
yeah, I just wanted
the
to
fact that, sorry. So just in terms of the customer retention, one of the other issues is that there's so much choice available for them. And also the customers these days have a knowledge influx, meaning that wherever they log in, they're getting some kind of advert or the other, right? So what do e-commerce businesses, since you're also a Shopify expert, have to keep in mind in order to sort of tell their story more effectively? Because there's so many ads around.
Absolutely. So the number one answer is, I ask you a question that when you have to make a purchase between the two different stores who have two different pricing, why would you buy from someone maybe who's more expensive, but not the store which even has the cheap cost?
I think maybe because of quality, or maybe because someone's brand conscious.
How do you know that they have a good quality when you have not made a purchase before?
Yeah, see, that's a challenge with online stores, right?
Yeah. So yeah, coming back to the same thing that in order to have bringing up the differentiation, number one thing is that not every customer is your customer. So you have to keep in mind. Number two is building up the persona. So I did a marketing strategy from Howard Business School, and number one thing they taught was Hamid, uh, build up a human who's ideal customer for you. What he does, number one, he goes around shopping on the weekend. Number two, he travels sometimes. Number three, he has disposable income to spend, right? Number four, he wears probably expensive clothes, right? Number five, he goes to the conferences, right? So first of all, that you need to do is you have to understand who's your target customer. You cannot just run for every business, right? Number two, once you have finalized, and those of course can be finalized by running multiple A/B tests and campaigns. When you figure out and find it out that which areas and which personality could be the one that could be the potential buyer
So
from
defining
you.
the persona of the customer.
Exactly, finalizing the persona. Now, once you have that persona, then keep that person in mind and start and keep on improving the experience, right? So for example, if someone is targeting Hamid, then he needs to keep getting better and better in terms of maybe quality of the clothing, right? Maybe good shape out of his online store, maybe good reviews, maybe he is, requesting Hamid, or he is promoting Hamid with several other benefits, which could be loyalty program. So one of the things which Sephora did, there is a case study of Sephora as well, that they have targeted a specific persona, and then on top of that, they actually targeted one of a few of their collections, not all the collections. So you have to go a little narrow in your marketing strategy as well, in order to have those customers to coming back. And once you have narrowed down a little, then work more and more and more and keep getting better. And as Abrar sir mentioned, that there is a need of, so we get sometimes clients who are selling, let's say, a hanger for $1. And then there was a lady who said that sell the same hanger for $6. Now, as an agency, we are an expert. We have to do that, right? So obviously, it was much easier to sell for $1 client the same hanger, because $1 is the price that you also get in Amazon. $1 is also price that you get from when someone is trying to Google, but she's trying to sell in $6. Why would someone buy? I said, ma'am, what you have to do is, number one, build a very good brand video that should tell why would someone buy from you 6 times the price when apparently it's the same product that people are looking for. So number one, yes, building up good brand videos, building up good customer reviews, a real ladies and real men talking about those products, sharing those reviews. Exactly. And then on top of that, have a very, very beautiful looking landing page, very high quality product images, right? And ease of experience as well, and top quality customer service. So if they made a purchase, they should not regret, oh, what a class customer service. I'll just give you one example of the customer service. I was going to Russia to watch soccer 2018 match, and I was on Qatar Airways, and I saw that one of the members sitting on my side, the hostess, she came and she bent her knees down and presented the card like this. Would you like to have this, sir? And I was amazed with that customer service, that, oh my goodness, right? So if you provide that sort of customer service, the people are going to spread the voice, and your brand is going to have, good customers coming up than your competitors.
Right. Thank you so much, Mr. Hamid, for summing that up beautifully, because you took us through the whole journey, right from creating the customer persona to the landing page and the customer service. Thank you for that. Moving on, Mr. Abrar al-Haq, even though, we agree with everything that Mr. Hamid said, we do know that till the millennials, it wasn't such a big problem, but now Gen Z has changing preferences by the minute, and they're very different from the average consumer. In Pakistan, we know that there's a huge bulge, and majority of the consumers are young people. And similarly, brands have had a difficult time in sort of connecting to the customer's feelings about a particular brand. For example, back in the day, the telcos could create the sense of perception, for example, Jazz with Life Network, so on and so forth. But with the e-commerce market and retail in particular, I don't know of any brand in particular who's been able to grab or capture the sentiments of the consumers. What's your take on this?
Yeah, I think it's getting harder. You're absolutely right. It's getting harder. I think what could work for some of these brands is hiring people who are from the same generation, because regardless of what I want, maybe Hamid Saab is from an earlier generation, but regardless of what I want, I will never understand what these new generation of consumers want, right? And I can, as an executive, think about what they think, and unless somebody is Steve Jobs, who can who does not require, who can conceptualize the market and even think about what the consumers want. I think it's important to bring those people into the fold of marketing, in fold of market research, understanding what their needs is, of course, and trying to also understand which platforms are they on, what kind of, with all this clutter around you, what channels work, what channels don't. The traditional, I think, media, for example, and I'm not an expert, but traditional media, they're probably not going to be, you're not probably going to get them hooked on through Facebook. You'll probably have to find those other channels on which they sort of frequent. You'll also have to figure out those, whether long form works, short form works, whether stories work, whatever the new gadgets are, so you got to get into those places. And I think the best way to do that is hiring people from the same generation, of course, and making sure that their opinion counts, so that as a brand, you're able to communicate to those people and find ways to build a brand story that resonates with them. So that's my limited view, but I'm no expert. I can't do marketing to save my life.
Just adding up on that, talking about the customer experience, and also building up upon one thing that you mentioned about market research. We've seen that market research is a privilege that most of the bigger corporations can afford these days, like conducting focus groups and all that. Now, with the SME sectors or startups, unfortunately, that's a space they find harder to, because of the limited capacity, they find it harder to incorporate. What is your advice for such startups? How should they be conducting their R&D?
Is that for me or is that for Ham?
Abrar.
Okay. No, so I think like you said, market research is something that bigger companies could do. But I think with the rise of e-commerce, a lot of that has been democratized. When you work with Shopify, when you work with Facebook, when you work with these other agencies and other channels, I think they provide you a lot of analytics that did not exist before. And now I feel that more so than before, smaller brands have a chance of getting some access to real-time data, of course. And then this data is also much more actionable. You can go through all your funnels, see what's working, what's not working, what kind of content resonated with your customers, what did not. So I feel that with the rise of digital media, the rise of e-commerce, the market research part of the business, at least the quantitative part, has become much more accessible.
Right.
Of course, the qualitative part of the qualitative research that some of these brands do is, of course, not something that you can do today. But I think things are much better for smaller brands now. They have a better chance.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Hamid. Yeah. So, talking about the research element again, and when we talk about analytics, there's a lot of talk about numbers, especially in terms of digital marketing and insights and heat maps and all that. We know we have the technology, but we also know that a lot of this marketing and all of these efforts are also paid, right? So we've seen, unfortunately, some of these testimonials and reviews and numbers can also be misleading. Right. What is your take on it?
So I understand about the research part, but I couldn't get about the misrepresentation of the numbers. So could you relate that?
Oh, So for instance, we talk about paid campaigns, right? And it's obviously, and then paid reviews as well. We've seen a huge influx of those with the rise in influencers. So if the bigger companies can afford to pay influencers or send these fancy PR packets, obviously it's going to drive more traffic to the e-commerce store or merchant. So how can we be wary of this? How can we make consumers more aware?
Yes. So I guess number one thing is about like the research is available with the help of the tools. So yes, before we jump on to any business or any e-commerce store, there are tools available inside the Facebook as well. So in Facebook, you can actually find out what's going on. Number two is there are some Google tools available as well, where you can actually see in which areas and what are how the traffic going on. So before you actually, and also some paid tools available for Amazon as well. So if you're bringing on the stuff from the Amazon, or if you're sourcing yourself. So number one thing is there are tools available where you can do a proper research and then build up a brand, ensuring that the sourcing is going to be right. Number two is about the channels. So if I understand your question, you're saying that which channels could be potentially the best channel and driving more traffic for sales. So I would suggest that actually goes product to product, right? So when we take on a new customer, the first question we've been asked is which is the best channel for us to grow further, right? But before we actually go into any channel, even influencers, I will not suggest you to go to influencers unless you really have a very good landing page, right? I've seen that people spending a lot of money to influencers, getting the traffic and getting lost just because of the bad experience, right? So when we take on a client for an e-commerce growth, number one thing we do is we spend a month and a half just ensuring that their website, their landing page is having all those attributes to get the traffic and actually get it converted as well, right? And then number two is after we are done with that, then we run A/B test campaigns. So let's say it's a jewelry brand who wants to sell the jewelry in Pakistan or maybe in abroad. So then we're gonna start with initially probably with multiple channels after doing due diligence, Google shopping ads, number two, Google search ads, and then retargeting with the Google display ads, and then running the Facebook, Instagram as well. And if they have a good brand story or the brand video, so we're gonna put some retargeting display ads over the TikTok or the YouTube as well, right? So depending on A/B test campaigns, the first 3 months that we spend is all about numbers. And when we take on about numbers of return on ad spend, this is the most critical question you could ever have. That how much will I spend and how much should I get back? And what should be my expectation? So as a rule, so I work with a lot of e-commerce brands, I work with a lot of e-commerce agencies. I've seen that some agencies put it like 2.5 to 3 ROAS, like a return on ad spend, is considered as the industry average. However, we personally ran a lot of campaigns where the ROAS was even more than 10 or 15, especially in Black Fridays and Thanksgiving and other different promotions that we have. So depending on what's going on, depending on how aggressive is your strategy, the return on ad spend can be improved. However, it goes gradually. So for the first 3 months, do not expect that to be magically 3 or 3 plus. If we are just able to finalize the winning campaign in the first 3 months, that is going to be okay. And once we have finalized the campaigns, finalized the persona in the first 3 months, then the next 3 to 6 months, we can just scale and getting the ROAS improved. Yeah.
Right. Thank you so much for that very detailed information. Mr. Abrarul Haq, unfortunately, in the interest of time, we will have to wrap up today, but I would love to hear your concluding remarks. You've shared some very valuable insights with us.
I think 2 or 3 things. One, of course, there's a lot of room in Pakistan for brands to improve customer experience and improve customer retention. It's super crucial, like Hamid pointed out that, with the cost of acquisition going up, it's important that you're able to improve your, customer retention. And the best way to do that is by building a wow customer experience from the point where, the customer first access your website, the landing page, or even before that, how they find you, which is, for example, through Google ads or through these reviews or through some of these other ads. So from that point onwards, to the point that the customer comes to your site, how is it designed, how easy it is for them to find the product that they need, how quick is the checkout process, how convenient is that, and from that point onwards, all the way to the delivery time, what you get is between what you get and what you ordered, the experience of the rider at the end point, the return process, and then eventually, finally, the customer experience, which is or the care part of the business, where if things go wrong, how do they contact? So I think there's so much to improve. There's so much to do in Pakistan, and I think I think in the early days of our e-commerce business development, and I think we're going to see a lot of improvement in these in the coming times. Thanks to companies like what Mr. Hamid has set up. I feel that Pakistan has a long way to go in e-commerce now.
Inshallah. Mr. Hamid, very briefly, your concluding remarks, please.
Sure. My concluding remarks is when we go on to run the e-commerce store, go very calculated. One. Number two, as soon as you go, you finalize the person who could be your target audience. Number three, increase the audience, increase the similar people. It could be hundreds of thousands. So make a huge crowd of the similar personas that we have. And as soon as we have that crowd, just make sure that you have SMS and their email list. I would suggest that more than running the ads on Facebook and Instagram and Google, just keep that for prospecting, focus more on the retention, and also running the email automation and SMS automation and promo campaigns, because the larger brands, they spend 70 to 80% of their focus on existing customers. So that's where we need to focus on and grow the e-commerce brands. Yeah.
Very pertinent points made indeed. Thank you very much, Mr. Hamid. Thank you very much, Mr. Abrar for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, very interesting topic indeed. And we know that there's a lot that is being done, but my humble advice to all of you would be to keep continuing your research. The gentleman shared a lot of knowledge with us today. And the times are changing, ladies and gentlemen. The future is here and now. We've heard about the metaverse. And for those who are operating e-commerce stores, my advice would be to try and look into what the future looks like. Thank you very much. Keep watching. We've still got a couple of interesting guest speakers for today's session. Thank you very much.